Dear friends, you're watching Kaleidoscope. These days, we're talking mostly about the Taliban and Afghanistan, as if that is the only issue facing this region. Somehow, we also, when I watch the Indian media, they're also kind of, talking day in and day out about the Taliban and about Afghanistan. And that is understandable from their perspective, because they would not like to that the Kashmir should be under international focus. But I think it is important that we should also remember that the people of Jammu and Kashmir are still giving massive sacrifices. They are still living almost under, state oppression. So it is important that we should not be forgetting as to what the people of Jammu and Kashmir are going through. Hence, I thought to invite Dr. Nazir Gilani, who is the founder of Jammu Kashmir Council of Human Rights, very active on this subject, because he himself is a Kashmiri, and obviously one can understand his attachment to this cause. So Dr. Gilani Saab, I'm grateful to you for coming to the Kaleidoscope and talking on Kashmir. Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, Ambassador Basit Saab, they say in Persian, Chashme ma roshan dile ma shad. You are always so kind to us and so committed to the cause of human rights and to freedoms around the world wherever you have served. Yes, you are very right that these days Afghanistan is on the radar, but Kashmir has been very well flagged under most telling circumstances and circumstances that have an environment of inhumanity and cruelty and barbarity. That the Indian state
continues. Yeah, Dr. Gilani, the iconic figure, leader Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, left us on the 1st of September for his heavenly abode. And people are feeling a kind of a vacuum at the leadership level. How do you look at the struggle post-Gilani, the struggle in occupied Kashmir?
Ambassador Sahab, the cause of Kashmir, the principle of equality and self-determination is not connected to an individual or to a historic event. It inheres in the nation of Kashmir, in the people of Kashmir, within the boundaries of Kashmir, outside the borders of Kashmir, around the world. But Sayyid Ali Shah Gilani, no doubt, has remained a figure who was able to cement, consolidate, and represent the sentiments of the people of all ages. From the days of his life as a teacher, as a legislator, as a politician, and then a leader of the resistance movement, he has left behind a legacy, an impression, and now, above all, in his death, a very sad story, which is part of memory and then will be carried forward by the history.
How sad and tragic that the Indian government even did not allow his burial to take place according to his last will. And even his relatives were not allowed to attend his funeral. He was buried after midnight. And how shameful, don't you think? This is one of the gravest human rights violations.
Ambassador, I have read way back a book, India Without Makeup, when I was a college student. Now I understand what that book meant. He said that the Indian society is like an onion. And I do remember the Indian Solicitor General speaking in Geneva at the UPR, and he said that we are a country that is home for major religions of the world. It was a very convincing argument that, oh, here we have a country which accommodates, embraces, and houses, and is home for all the major religions of the world. Regardless of the religion, it was an astonishment to see that the Indians decided, the administration decided to punish Ali Shah Gilani even in his death or after his death as well. The way they treated the dead body, the way they handled the members of the family, the women folk in the house, the children, his sons, and daughter-in-laws, granddaughters, others. It baffles common sense that is that the home of major religions of the world? Is that the civil society of India that we have known or India wants to advocate at home and abroad? I think they have lost both in the life of Ali Shah Gilani because they kept him under house arrest for 12 years. So he actually died under detention. So this is a death under detention. He was not allowed proper medical facilities. He has never traveled outside his street at Hyderpura. All these 12 years, he was never allowed to go to offer Jummah prayers, have the Eid prayers. So in a way, he was a prisoner of a very special class, as if Indians wanted to make an example out of him, but now India has become an example itself, that here is an administration. I would say that Indians are so cruel, barbaric, or inhumane, but I would say that the composition of the administration in India at this very minute is very unfortunate. It is not in the interest of the Indian community as well. Way back and way ahead, there would come a time when the Indians will have to apologize to the people of Kashmir, to the family of Ali Shah Gilani, as the Catholics had to apologize to Galileo after 300 years. Because for 300 years, they punished him, but after 300 years, in October 1992, the Pope had to apologize that our laws, our treatment, and the house arrest of Galileo for 9 years was unfair, unethical.
It really saddens me to see that even Indian civil society organizations, I haven't heard a single voice in India who would be kind of, protesting against this maltreatment, this treatment of the mortal remains of, the way India handled the burial of Gilani Sahab. So in any case, let's move forward and see how do you see now Masarat Alam Bhatt has been appointed to replace, to succeed Sayyid Gilani. And do you think that the Hurriyat leadership or the Hurriyat conference is in good hands? Because Masarat Alam Bhatt is also in jail for years, and I do not see, and though he was released momentarily for a few days in March 2015, if I recall correctly, but I do not see Indians releasing him anytime soon. So if he is behind the bars, how would the Hurriyat really reorganize itself in order to step up to the evolving situation, step up to the plate of challenging the huge state terror machinery of India?
Ambassador, I think there is an inherent problem here because Masarat Alam is in prison. You need to have somebody actively leading the people of Kashmir and who is not in the jail. Even then, we wish him well. But what Hurriyat needs to do, that they need to return to Hurriyat constitution. They need to keep the constitution on the chair and then sit around the constitution, and every Kashmiri would support the constitution of Hurriyat, which was adopted on 31st of July 1993. The constitutional discipline of Hurriyat is legitimate and it has led the people of Kashmir through difficult times so far. Wherever and whenever Hurriyat has nudged past its constitution, it has run into difficult situations. So whosoever is a Kashmiri, and wherever a Kashmiri remains, he should address and translate the spirit of Hurriyat Constitution, because Chapter 2 is very clear what the people of Kashmir need to do. Whether you have a president or you do not have a president of Hurriyat, you have the Hurriyat Constitution. I subscribe to it. Though I am not a Hurriyat member, I subscribe to it as a lawyer because it is very much attuned with the UN template on Kashmir. So Hurriyat members and the common man in Kashmir needs to understand that Hurriyat is an ideology, a sentiment, a translation of that sentiment into triggering the United Nations mechanism on Kashmir, and the Hurriyat Constitution is very much akin to that. But in addition to that, it also supports dialogue other than the UN mechanism as well. But so far as the dialogue is concerned, let me caution the Hurriyat and everyone that United Nations has said itself that India and Pakistan are free to engage into bilateral relations, but the end result should be consistent with the principles of the UN Charter. So Hurriyat has done very well that it has accommodated discussion of all kind. UN mechanism also provides for discussion and engagement of all kind, but all that has to end up.
But do you see, Dr. Gilani, any possibility of the two Hurriyat factions joining again, reuniting? Because how the dynamics are there in the occupied Kashmir?
The only thing that will glue them together, close and narrow down the differences is the constitution. Otherwise, it's very difficult.
Okay.
It's very difficult because whether you are educated, you are not educated in politics and in diplomacy of the day, you need to have something which is common. So this constitution will bind them together. I have seen over the years that when the chairman of Hurriyat and the Hurriyat senior leader Abbas Ansari Sahab and Mirwais came to Casablanca to Islamic Summit, it was well in accordance with the constitution of Hurriyat that India was forced to allow them to come out. But India would encourage these people to drift away from the constitution so that they can interpret them as terrorists, as people who are given to destabilize India and a lot more.
But the world, Dr. Gilani, the world has changed drastically since the Casablanca summit, and now we are dealing with new realities. I do not know, since though I have been involved in relation to the Jammu and Kashmir dispute, but the question is how to now take matters forward. I mean, are we stuck in a groove? How to get out of this cul-de-sac, apparently a cul-de-sac. We do not know how to get out of this and inject some more vigor, verve into the struggle, the Kashmir struggle, which is legitimate, which is in accordance with UN Charter, in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. How to go about it now that India is kind of has emerged as a hubristic state, not willing to talk to Pakistan and refusing to even negotiate or to rescind all those illegal, unconstitutional steps which it took on 5th August 2019. So how do you look at the entire situation in order for Kashmiris and for Pakistan to move ahead now, move forward in a way that this issue is resolved, rather than we are repeating the same arguments again and again and going nowhere?
Ambassador, I think there's hardly anyone in diplomacy and even in our circles who is as qualified on Kashmir as you are. there are two things. India has to decide whether they want to subdue, vanquish an unwilling people through the brute force. Would they decide to go ahead waging a war on the people of the state of Jammu and Kashmir? So it's a litmus test. It's as simple as the composition of water. So India has to make a choice whether they want to kill us one by one, profile us and kill us simply because they have a huge army, and then create a legitimate consequence to fight back, to take up arms again. So we have a legitimate right to undo Indian occupation and to defend if Indian army wants to profile us and kill us. So this is not self-determination. It is right to life. Self-determination comes at a later stage. What we have been guaranteed, not only self-determination, Ambassador Sir, we have been guaranteed rights and dignity, security and self-determination.
But are you hopeful? Do you see any ray of hope as a lawyer that the Indian Supreme Court would do something unexpected and declare all the constitutional amendments or stripping of the occupied Jammu and Kashmir of its special status as null and void? Do you see that happening, or there is simply no possibility even for the Indian Supreme Court to be non-partisan or to be non-political for that matter?
Ambassador Saab, Yusuf Targami has filed an application to expedite his petition, the hearing of his petition. There are 24 petitions pending, and some are hostile, some are pro. So the Indian Supreme Court is not the zenith of justice. It is not the dead end. If we fail to get relief, domestic relief, then we will have to move ahead, because what they did on 5th of August 2019, it has no legal moorings. India does not have a capacity, legal competence, or constitutional authority to do something in Kashmir where they needed a visa up to 31st of March, and where the Kashmir government has said to them, the Farooq Abdullah's government has said to them in the Autonomy Committee report, which was headed by Karan Singh, that we have not merged with India. There is a limited arrangement accession on 3 subjects.
Karan Singh, you mean the son of Maharaja Hari Singh? You are referring to him?
Yes, okay. Yes, sir. He was the chairman of the Autonomy Committee, and which has produced a report in 2000, and it has been approved by both the houses of the Kashmir Assembly. So India is in a very tight corner, because legally, even if the Supreme Court of India does something miraculous.
But Dr. Gilani, both Jammu and Kashmir High Court and the Indian Supreme Court in their respective judgments had already said very categorically that Article 370 or the special status, or Article 370 can neither be repealed nor changed, amended. So now, how would the Supreme Court defy its own earlier ruling? Or, I mean, what do you really expect? I still think that some miracle may happen. I do not really know.
That would be a sad day for the administration of justice in India if the Supreme Court of India now decides to be a part of BJP political philosophy, because they will have to respect their decisions, respect the decisions of the Jammu and Kashmir High Court. Over and above, the Supreme Court of India did hang Guru on the basis that it is to satisfy the public sentiment. The Supreme Court of India needs to know the public sentiment in Jammu and Kashmir that we are not part of India. We have never merged with the Union of India. We are a separate people, and until 5th of August 2019, India did not, or Indian citizen was quite different from the Kashmiri citizen in terms of rights in Kashmir. So Supreme Court of India will have to face international uproar, international condemnation, resentment if they decide to go and favor the government, because the previous Chief Justice of Supreme Court did favor the government, and he was accommodated in the Rajya Sabha as a member of our Rajya Sabha. So there are voices in India who say that the Indian Supreme Court has been politicized by this government. So this is not the end for us.
But now, as you know, that the Indian government is thinking to even proscribe the two Hurriyat factions on fabricated charges. So if even the Hurriyat conference is, both factions are proscribed, how then things will really, how the Kashmiris would react to this development? Because the entire Kashmiri leadership, the genuine leadership, is behind bars or under house arrest. From Mirwais Farooq to Shabir Shah, Asiya Andrabi, Dr. Qasim Faktu, Yasin Malik, you name anyone. They're all either under house arrest or in prison. So even the Hurriyat, the two factions are banned. How things really then move forward or go forward from the Kashmiri's perspective?
Even if they ban the Hurriyat, they would not be in a position to sustain their decision if the Hurriyat flags its own constitution. Having said so, even if the India goes mad, the Indian administration in Kashmir, they pack up all sanity and they decide to go mad. Then each one of us outside Kashmir has a right to take the Hurriyat constitution further from the point where Hurriyat has left it. But in my estimation, Hurriyat has never been able to sensitize its constitution. It would have had international recognition. It had. Pakistan did help them a lot in diplomacy, which is called political, moral, and other support. So their political, moral, and diplomatic support was there. But Hurriyat did very little on its constitution. They did not go to Delhi and explain that this is our constitution. We don't have a gun. We have these set principles, and these principles do represent even a Sikh, even a Kashmiri Pandit, even a Jew, even a Christian. Every citizen of the state of Jammu and Kashmir is represented under this constitution.
So what should Pakistan do? So what should Pakistan now do now that India is clearly saying that 5th August 2019 steps are non-negotiable, and they continue with their mantra of terrorism and talks cannot go together. So what should Pakistan be doing? Should Pakistan now resume talks with India, or we should still stick to our demand that status quo ante should be first restored before the two countries could engage with each other? What should be Pakistan doing now?
The first and foremost thing for Pakistan is to secure life of the people of Jammu and Kashmir, in particular the Muslims of Kashmir. They are the only people now which is a target population for Indian army and security forces. Pakistan needs to invoke the Canadian proposal that there should be United Nations defense for the people of Jammu and Kashmir. Pakistan can float and agitate its own proposal where it had proposed that the people of Kashmir should have a protection, and United Nations Security Council.
But will, I mean, can you imagine the international community, even Canada, supporting this proposal or this idea?
Sir, we have never tested their sense of honor. We have never been to Canada and addressed them that this was your position at the United Nations to save the people of Kashmir. Do you still believe that they have a right to life? Britain had said at one point that the militancy is legitimate in the state of Jammu and Kashmir. We can tell them, is the resistance legitimate in Kashmir? Do you still believe? There would be definitely countries, because Americans are so powerful, Israel is so powerful, but there are still people around the world who vote against them in the General Assembly.
But India Dr. Gilani, you know that India is proceeding methodically. Now they're also bringing about demographic changes in occupied Kashmir. They have issued millions of domiciles to Indians. So how, but I mean, we all understand the difficulties, but my question remains that what Kashmiris living in occupied Kashmir, in Azad Jammu and Kashmir, living in other parts of the world, how can we collectively, at least people who are outside occupied Jammu and Kashmir, how can we collectively, do something tangible about it, rather than making hollow statements which are neither here nor there?
Basically, we need, as I said in your previous program, we have failed to come up with a proportionate and pointed response to Indian action. That's only, we are not faced with we should forget about 5th of August 2019. We should re-agitate the UN template on Kashmir. For example, the Indian army, even before going to the UN, had to be temporarily there and they had to be withdrawn. There is an agreement between Indian army and the government of Jammu and Kashmir that these are temporary arrangements and our army will be withdrawn. And this has been also said at the UN Security Council. So Indian army is not legitimate in Kashmir. Even if they are there, they are a subordinate supplement. And that subordinate supplement can be disposed of by the Jammu and Kashmir government. Could have been. Now we don't have a Jammu and Kashmir government. Now Jammu and Kashmir is ruled by the representative of the government of India from Delhi. He is a non-state subject. If we explain these things to the Muslim world, to the non-Muslim world, to the UN, one by one, we have never, I would not commit myself through this program, but I will have to say, I hasten to request the government of Pakistan that Kashmir issue is not to be resolved, would not be resolved through street politics, through statements, through Zoom conferences. It has its own mechanism. You will have to address the mechanism. You will have to hold India accountable for its commitments, its failures, and its crimes in the state. So now they have come to a
point. Thank you very much. The time has ended, Dr. Gilani. I mean, there is so much to discuss with you because of your involvement, your commitment, your experience, your insights. But inshallah, we will again have such a discussion, I'm sure. So the message is primary. I mean, the fundamental message is that we need to revisit the drawing board and put our act together. The Kashmir cause is not a lost cause. And we should not be giving up, and there is no reason for us to be pessimistic about it. As Dr. Gilani very rightly pointed out, that we haven't yet even given our fullest to the Kashmir cause. And that is, I think, Dr. Gilani, is the message from you, if I'm not wrong.
Sir, I thank you on behalf of the people of Kashmir and on behalf of the council.
Thank you very much, sir, and see you again soon, inshallah. All the best.
My pleasure.